Ravens Wrap is sponsored by Bud Light, jctickets.net, Geico Insurance, Donaway Furniture, Ocean City Golf Club, RussellStreetReport.com, Comfort Inn Gold Coast, Holiday Inn Express, the original Green Turtle, hosted by the Blue Ox Bar and Grill.
And welcome back. It's the original Green Turtles Ravens Wrap Show right here on Comcast Beach TV and Delmarva's Rock Radio, the strongest Ravens affiliate on Delmarva, 93.5 The Beach. Don't forget, our radio show can be heard at 11 a.m. Sunday mornings leading up to most 1 o'clock kickoffs for the Ravens. Not all, but a lot of 1 o'clock games this season. Of course, we're broadcasting from the infamous Ravens Room at the Blue Ox Bar and Grill, 127th Street at Ocean City. Want to thank our fine sponsors, the original Green Turtle, of course, the Blue Ox Bar and Grill, Bud Light, the Comfort Inn Gold Coast, Geico, the Ocean City Golf Club, jctickets.net, the Holiday Inn Express at Northside here in Ocean City, and of course our friends at Donaway Furniture as well. Mike Bradley, John Gehrig, Steve Slaza, and Tommy Dickerson. And guys, there's a lot to get to this week in terms of player transactions and things that transpired. Let's try to recap a little bit going back to the Denver game. Jacoby Jones is out 4 to 6 weeks. He's got a sprained MCL, unfortunately. No thanks to our backup free safety, Trawick, who knocked into him in the Denver game. Michael Orr, his right ankle was fallen upon by our right guard, Marshall Yanda. He sprained it, but he was at practice. We're doing the show on Wednesday. He was at practice today, and he says that he's hopeful for the Cleveland game. He hasn't missed a game since being drafted since 2009, so I would expect the chances are he will play. Arthur Jones, God bless him, had a viral infection, folks, near his heart. He missed that first game. He is healthy now. He practiced today as well, so he should be back there on the defensive line and good to go for us on Sunday as well. So we wish him certainly the best. But we had some transactions that took place this week because of the fact that Jacoby Jones is hurt. Deontay Thompson's still on the active roster, but he's still hurt. And we had cut David Reed. We cut David Reed, but Tanda Dawson we also cut. He's been re-signed, and they released one of the linebackers who was a special team guy. So Dawson's back to add wide receiver depth. And he also, of course, adds his kick returner, punt returner duties. Today, the Ravens signed former Kansas City Chiefs running back and kick returner Sean Drawn. And because of that, to make room, and I think from what I hear, it's kind of a fall injury, but Aaron Millette, who was expected to make some contributions at wide receiver, has been put on IR. So he is done for the year for the Ravens. So that's one less guy that we had to go to. I don't think, John, anybody feels confident, unfortunately, in Tanda Dawson. Deontay Thompson's still hurt. So it is a very thin wide receiving core, as we've talked about. You've got Torrey, you've got Stokely, you've got Brown, and that's about it.
They have enough guys. They're going to have to. They're really going to have to get creative. Caldwell's going to have to get creative on the offensive side and use the pieces we have. We have some skill there. I mean, we have reliable guys. I don't think Dallas Clark's going to keep dropping balls, and he was wide open. So, I mean, he's got skill. He's got smarts. So does Stokely. Stokely was open a few times. So, and Caldwell knows those guys, and vice versa. So, I think we'll be okay. We're just not going to be spectacular. And really, Torrey Smith's going to have to get open, and he's going to have to act. He needs to play like.
Well, he had 9 catches against Denver.
He needs to. When you're down by that many points, I mean, you're going to get a lot of that. But he just needs to create separation and be a number 1 receiver. Steve.
I think that when Deontay Thompson comes back, I think that's going to make a difference. And I think he's a player. I think Marlon Brown's coming on. But, I think of all the positions, and John, you may agree with this or you may not. But, I think going from college wide receiver to pro wide receiver is probably the most difficult position to transition to.
Yeah, I agree with that. Now, it's a lot of route trees, and you're playing against the best corner. Corners, college corners.
The best athletes. They're the toughest. That's the toughest position to play, and that's where they put him, in the linebacker. But I tell you what, we have to mix it up on offense. You cannot put Joe Flacco as many times behind center. He plays much better from the shotgun. I'm sorry, his footwork, if it's the weakest part of his game, is not very good. I'm sorry, he's not very nimble, he's not very agile. But if he's in the shotgun, and I don't know how many times he lined up. I don't know what the stats were, but I guarantee he lined up way too much time behind the center. And what happens why didn't we go the no huddle more? We do so well with that, and we did it a few times. But the best way to run that is to keep people off balance, is to do it sometimes, don't do it sometimes, don't do it. You don't just do it when you're out of necessity, because they know you're going to do it then. We got to mix it up. I mean, but we just went behind it, and we just kind of lethargically, we became a slow team, and we're not extremely fast anyway. But I mean, the guy who played the best was Vontae Leach, and we cut him and we bought him back. Talk about transactions. That was a huge one to bring back because he played better than anybody on the offense, I thought.
Well, that segues into some questions from the audience, and one of the questions is, do we only have 2 running backs? If so, why? As I just mentioned, we did sign Sean Drawn, but that's mostly for special teams purposes, guys.
We have 2 great running backs. We just need to use them. This goes back to last year. I mean, we talked about this. Ray Rice needs 25 touches. He's a hoss. He got paid. He got paid and then did less work. That's what we've done. We basically said, we're going to give you a bunch of money. We did the whole Barack Obama economy here. And we're going to give you your money and you don't have to do anything. So.
You're going to get that in at some point.
We're going to distribute the wealth, and now Bernard Pierce here.
Well, he is a pretty good back, though. I don't disagree with you, but Pierce is a nice change-up guy.
So we need to use both of those guys.
They went away from Pierce very early in that game. I don't know why they brought him in a little bit early, but they didn't see him much late in the game. And I don't know why they cut Anthony Allen. I mean, the guy I thought was a really good player on special teams and as a third running back. I don't know why.
Well, Steve, speaking of the third running backs, though, when we were talking about running backs, Bobby Rainey, we thought, I guess, we could get through waivers. He ends up signing on with the Cleveland Browns. So I guess that was supposed to be our third back, but you take the chance putting him through waivers. The Browns pick him up, and he was on kick return for him last week.
Well, they end up cutting Rainey, they end up trading Reed, and then Dawson ends up getting cut. So you end up with a guy with 2 broken knees, fair catching for the second half. I mean, that was just an absolute roster joke.
Well, and Thompson's hurt, so.
And I think the thing that they didn't do with the running backs is we have 4 guys that can catch the ball. I mean, Juszczyk can catch the ball, Pierce and Ray Rice can catch the ball, and they didn't funnel them out of the backfield. I thought that was an area where we could have done because, Ray Rice and Pierce are very tough for a linebacker to match up with in coverage.
Another question is, and since, John, you were a former tight end, how do you correct players who drop balls a la Ed Dickson? Dallas Clark's a veteran. He's done it before. I think he's capable of better. So I'm not worried about him per se. But Ed Dickson, it is a problem. 2 years ago, he had like 51 catches and played very well. We thought he could be a heck of a tight end matched up with Pitta, but he's really fallen off last 2 years.
Drop a ball, run a mile.
Doesn't make your hands better by running a mile, though.
They don't want to run miles. They'll catch they'll watch the ball. I don't. These guys are pros. CBA, you can't do anything. You can't practice. You can't. You're running around in helmets, and I don't even know if they're allowed to wear helmets anymore. So
they can have 1 padded practice a week.
Yeah, I mean it's kind of a joke. Dallas Clark, when you're out of the game for a little while, sometimes you just need to get back in the groove, and he'll be fine. Ed Dixon's just never going to catch a pass. He's not tough. He doesn't like it. He needs to be cut.
Next question up. Did they block out the replay in the booth to prevent John Harbaugh from challenging the reception while everyone at home knew it was incomplete? Now, somebody's laughing out here, but I did think it was the case that it was a home field advantage thing, that the visitor's box doesn't get to see the replay. You guys can step in. I'm not sure on that one.
I'm like you, where it happens so quick in the spur of the moment, and it changed the game. It's one play. Recover and do well.
Well, they ended up scoring on that drive, and then they had the pump block. So some people would argue that spurned that roller coaster.
You can make that argument, but you line up and you play, and things happen. That's the way the game was. Johnny Hughes Day, they didn't challenge the play because they couldn't.
Tommy?
Well, yeah, you're right. They didn't, but things were different back then. They played a lot different game back then. But I'm sorry, that's a momentum difference. The difference between punting the ball and us getting the ball back at 7 points. It's a 7-point turnaround. I think that's huge. But I don't buy the theory that we didn't see it because they sure showed it enough, and there was enough time. I'm not buying it. I think the Ravens assistant coaches or whoever just blew it because NBC proved that they showed it within 30 seconds. They showed it 4 times, and they just blew it. It was obvious. They just missed it, and he didn't throw it in time.
Well, it's tough to blame John Harbaugh for that because if he didn't,
assistant coach,
if he didn't say, there's always somebody up in the box that's supposed to be responsible for that.
Right, that's what I'm saying. They blew it.
Right. So that's the thing, and he said they didn't see it. Maybe he was covering for somebody. That's what good head coaches do.
But where Harbaugh could have been blamed was that Graham was jumping up and down saying he dropped the ball, he dropped the ball, he dropped the ball.
Right. And that's fair.
And you're saying you trust your players and you're a players coach.
Well, then the player should have faked an injury. Yeah. He should have just dropped down on my ankle hurt.
Like the Giants do?
I got a cramp,
Or like the Bears did, as Urlacher admitted to.
He's got to use his head and say, I got to delay this game here a little bit. I mean, sometimes being a good player means you can use your head too. It's just not all about running fast.
Well, guys, I think the good news, I know it was a tough loss, As I mentioned, though, the first half, we had the lead. We saw some good things there. There's a lot to get better on. I think there are some guys that certainly are capable and have had the experience and the history of being better football players. But let me parlay that into the AFC North right now. Let's go around. You had a Pittsburgh team that lost their starting center, Pouncey, for the year. Their inside linebacker, Larry Foote, looks like he's done for the year. That O-line was tenuous at best to begin with. They're hurting. They scored 9 points, 2 of which came from a special teams safety. They don't look very good. The Bengals, who's everybody's media darling this year, they had a 21-10 lead, I believe, at halftime against the Bears. They ended up losing that lead. Dalton throws 2 picks in that one. They don't run the ball very effectively against the Bears, even though it's a good defense. And then Cleveland, I thought their offense kind of fits, and we'll talk about Cleveland coming up. Their offense fits their quarterback, but they've got North Turner, offensive coordinator, who's one of the best. Their new head coach comes in. You think things are a little bit different, but they, against the Miami team that's getting there, but they're not an elite team, and they lose that one 23-10. So, look, a lot of teams have a lot of deficiencies, and I still think at the end of the day right now, we still look as one of the better teams, I think, Tom, in the AFC North.
Oh, I agree. I nothing to worry about yet. Obviously, not time to panic. But I mean, Wheaton threw 5 interceptions or 4 interceptions.
Wheaton had 3.
Three interceptions. Okay, and he didn't play very well. But the Steelers. I mean, they lose Mike Wallace. I mean, that's who we have to. That's who we worry about. The Bengals. We thought we were going to be really good, but that game. I still think the Bengals are going to be our toughest opposition this year in the division. But losing to the Bears is no embarrassment at Chicago on opening day. Now, winning 20 or being up 21-10, you're concerned, but they still have a lot of talent in Cincinnati. And this could be one of those years where 8-8, or was it 2 years ago? Cincinnati, or Seattle went to the playoffs. They were 7-9.
Right.
I mean, you never know. But and they won their first.
And they beat New Orleans at home,
and they won their first round playoff game. So
Yeah.
we can't. We just have to win our divisions one step at a time, get to the playoffs, and anything can happen. Just
No
like
question about it. Guys, we're running out of time here, but I think the good point, Tony Lombardi brought this up last week, the way our roster's constituted right now and maybe trying to get fortunate and not keep, Bobby Rainey on the team, for instance, our wide receiver situation. The makeup of the roster a little bit, 4 corners, 5 safeties. I know some of those are special teams decisions, but it's a fair point to take a look at it and see, have they made some of the right moves? We're caught short right now, some of which had to do with injury. That Bolden loss, if Pitta didn't get hurt, that loss would have been a little easier to swallow. We've got more coming your way. We'll preview the upcoming Browns game. It's a Ravens Wrap Show. Comcast Beach TV at 93.5 The Beach.
In April 1959, Art Wall won the Masters, edging out Carey Middlecoff and Arnold Palmer by finishing birdie, 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 par birdie. 1 month later, Ocean City Golf Club celebrated the opening of their first 18 holes. That course has been transformed now into one of the most scenic golf layouts on the East Coast. Come experience 36 of the most beautiful and challenging holes you'll find anywhere. Ocean City Golf Club in Ocean City, Maryland.